not a lot to add to any comments you heard me say over the last 11 years. One of the things I've said often is, my desire is for Kirk to retire at Iowa. And over almost 20 years now, he's demonstrated all the reasons why I feel that way. And so pleased to announce the contract extension and excited about the next several years. So with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Gary, is there a buyout with this similar to the one before? Could you lay that out?
Well, the answer to the question is there's always a buyout in a contract, and this one is very similar to the previous buyout.
So everything is signed. There's no more details to work out. It's all done.
Everything's signed. Yeah.
You didn't officially hire Kirk, but you've been with him longer than I think all but about a handful of coaches and athletic directors nationally at this level. What is it about you that what did you see about Kirk that you wanted to keep and maintain that relationship into the next 10 years?
Well, I've only been with Kirk for the last 10 years, now 11, but I've been in college athletics for almost 30. I was also a student athlete who played the game of football, and of all the coaches I've been around, of all the coaches I've watched, certainly winning is critical. But beyond that, winning, our mantra, win, graduate, do it right. I've not worked with or been around a coach who's as skilled and passionate about all three areas. And so he's proven himself over and over in all three categories prior to my arrival and certainly during the last 10 years that we've worked together. And when I evaluate that and I look into the future, the foundation right now is so strong with our coaching staff, beyond that, our facilities, our recruiting. So I just feel great about where we're at, and I want to make sure that we're poised to continue that into the future.
What was the impetus for this, for extension for?
Well, it's no secret in our business that if you start to get to a certain point, there's discussion about recruiting. I laugh about that a little bit in that nobody, or I guess there's only one other coach at our level that's been at it at the same place for as long as Kirk. And so while I don't necessarily think that's the case, I also don't want to take it for granted. I know that if I were to set out and look for a coach with the accomplishments, the values that Kirk has, I would be hard pressed. In fact, I would argue I wouldn't be able to find a better fit. So I just made the decision that now was a great time. And I felt so good about the momentum with this building that we're in, with the progress I've seen the last several years in recruiting, with the quality of coaching staff, the longevity of the assistants. So it just felt like a great time. Obviously, the success of last year maybe pushed it over the top, but it's really based on it's based on the 10 years that I've worked with him.
His previous contract was roughly 10 years. It
was more than roughly. It was 10.
I mean, 10. This same thing. Is that a coincidence that they're both roughly into 10-year contracts?
I wouldn't call it a coincidence. I think the last time when I gave Kirk a 10-year contract, I said then I had never given a 10-year contract before. I didn't know that I ever would again. This is only the second 10-year contract I've given, and the circumstances just have to be so unique in our business to do it. But once again, I feel very strongly that it's the best way to go.
How much did last season help that thought process?
Again, I'm not basing my decision on one season. I'm basing it on 10 years of working with Kirk. I also watched, as we went through difficult times, how he reacted, how he stayed the course, how the foundation stayed strong. So even in years where we maybe didn't reach the level we wanted to reach, I admired and appreciated his value system. He didn't compromise through those less successful years. So it's a combination of everything. Clearly, to have one of the best seasons in our history last year created great impetus to move forward now.
Last year, a little over a year ago, there was a lot of scrutiny on yourself, on Kirk, the program, whether it was headed in the right direction. You stayed firm on Kirk. Do you feel, not just with 12-0, but just the kind of the momentum of the program validated at all? Because a lot of ADs would have cut bait. A lot of ADs would have forced hirings and firings and what have you.
I've been asked that question a lot, and I don't feel comfortable saying I've been validated. What I feel great about is the instincts of myself and the people around me, the values that Kirk has demonstrated, not only the 17 years as head coach, but from what I understand when he was an assistant coach, he hasn't changed the way he approaches things. So validated might not be the word I would choose, but I feel great about the fact, I want good things to happen to good people. And there's a lot of great people that work at the University of Iowa, a lot of great student athletes. So it feels terrific to me that this has come to fruition and we continue to move forward.
Are the assistants involved? I mean, are they tied into this in any way, shape, or form?
Similar to the past. When you get a copy of the contract, you'll see a lot of similar patterns in the current contract to the last contract with a few changes.
There was not a huge raise or big money jump. What was negotiated?
Well, some would differ with the
You're right.
comment that there wasn't a huge raise, and I say that smiling because the marketplace clearly to be a head football coach at this level certainly is a good lucrative business. But again, I looked at it total picture. We looked at the longevity of the contract was valuable. It's just a combination of all those things that make it, in my opinion, in Kirk's opinion, you'd have to ask him, but otherwise he wouldn't have signed it, a great contract moving forward.
How cognizant were you of the buyout? Were you reticent to do the same thing as last time, given all the negative attention it gathered over 5 years?
That's a fair question, but I get negative attention no matter what I do. If I do something, there's a group that's upset about it, and I get negative attention if I don't do something, not just in this case, but anything I do. I said a year ago, prior to the season, that my decision to stay the course with Kirk was based on all the values and all the past experience, not based on the buyout. That the buyout is something that we could have done financially, but I chose to stay with him because of who he is and what he had done. So signing a long-term contract has risk to it, but so does not signing a long-term contract. So I feel great about the contract and moving forward.
The buyout's likely less of an impact, I guess, nowadays. TV revenue coming in and growing and growing.
I think buyouts are important in any contract, but it's just one part of the equation. I mean, if you don't have a buyout in a contract, then it's not a long-term contract. So, and I don't mean to downplay that, but it's an important part of the puzzle, but it's just one piece of it.
Well, Gary, when you're doing a buyout, how much is leverage an issue? Like when you're for the university, like how much does that enter into your mind when you're negotiating with Kirk a buyout?
When you decide to make a long-term commitment to a coach, a 10-year commitment to a coach, that decision is based on comfort that you're not going to get to a buyout. And so that's the best way I can answer it. Contracts are certainly in place for legal reasons, but by giving Kirk a 10-year contract, what I'm saying is I don't intend to change coaches. I intend for Kirk at some point, as he said, nobody can predict the future, at some point when the time is right for him to retire here. But the idea to give somebody a long-term contract is to say, we're in all the way.
From your perspective, what's the risk in not having a long-term contract?
The risk is the thought of having to go out and get another coach at some point. And if I have to do that, am I going to find somebody that I feel more confident in, somebody that I trust as much? And the answer is no.
Has there been any discussion about a succession plan at all? He's got a very talented son who will be a head coach at some point, I imagine.
No, we've had no discussion about the succession plan right now. The conversation has been about the coming season and more currently about our next game.
There was a lot of talk about a week ago or so about Coach Doyle's salary. Could you maybe address that?
I think I have, and I'll say the same thing I've said before. One of the things when I first arrived, and Kirk and I were getting to know each other, he talked a lot about how at Iowa and how he as the head coach managed his program. And he indicated that he really looked at his offensive coordinator, his defensive coordinator, and his associate head coach or his strength and life coach, which he has and had Chris Doyle in that position. He saw them as equal coordinators. And that's the way that we've talked about whenever we put salaries together. That's the way he's approached it. I'm very comfortable with that. And I think the evidence of his approach has certainly paid off, and that he continues to have great confidence in Chris, as do I, as one of the best strength coaches in the country.
He had to operate with a lower class type facility, the bubble, for a long period of time, and now you have this facility here. Does that, I mean, do you feel like all the pieces are in place now for a really good run for Kirk to kind of finish his career out?
I think just to circle around to what I said earlier, and it's related to what you just said, the foundation at at Iowa to remain and be one of the top football programs in the country is well set, is well established. And it's well established because first and foremost, Kirk and his staff, the people, but then you add to that, the renovation of Kinnick Stadium previously and all the new facilities here, the recruiting classes the last couple of years. You can just feel the momentum. And so to answer your question, yes, I think all the pieces are in place. That doesn't mean we'll have challenges, we'll have hiccups along the way, but I feel great. I feel as strongly and as confident in our foundation of our athletic program and our football program today as I have at any time during my 11 years at Iowa.
In terms of
Final
chain of
question.
command, does anyone else have to sign off on a deal like this? The president, the board of regents, the governor?
Well, the President of the United States does not get involved in a football contract. But in all seriousness, you might imagine that I'm in constant contact with my boss, Bruce Harrell. And, we're constantly talking about an important decision like this. He leaves it up to me. He makes sure that his bosses, the regents, are aware. But at the end of the day, it's my decision along with my boss's full endorsement.
Thanks.